I remember the exact moment the air shifted in my daughter's dining room. The scent of roasted turkey mixed with pumpkin pie, and the late afternoon sunlight caught the crystal glasses on the table just right. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. That's when I knew something was about to go very wrong. My name is Margaret Chen, though most people call me Maggie. I'm 58 years old, and I've been a widow for 3 years now. My husband David died suddenly from a heart attack while we were planning our retirement trip to Taiwan, the country I left when I was 23. We never made that trip, but I learned something important in those dark months after his death. I learned that silence can be more powerful than words, and patience more devastating than anger. That Thanksgiving afternoon at my daughter Sarah's house, I sat quietly at the far end of the table, watching. I'm good at watching now. It's a skill I developed over the years. First as a hospital administrator, managing difficult doctors and demanding patience. Then as a widow, navigating a world that suddenly treated me as invisible. Sarah had insisted I come early to help with the cooking, which meant I'd spent most of the morning in her kitchen, quietly chopping vegetables while she fussed over the turkey. My son-in-law Brad was nowhere to be seen until about 2 hours before the guests were supposed to arrive. He breezed in wearing an expensive-looking suit, smelling of cologne and what I suspected was whiskey from some business lunch. "Hey, Maggie," he said, barely glancing at me as he loosened his tie. "Sarah, we need to talk about the seating arrangement. I invited the Hendersons. Mark Henderson's considering listing his beach house with me." I watched Sarah's face tighten. We'd already set the table for 12. The Hendersons would make 14. "Brad, we don't have enough. Just squeeze everyone together," he said, already heading upstairs. "This is important. Mark's listing could be a 6-figure commission." I said nothing. I just went back to mashing the sweet potatoes, adding butter and cream the way my daughter loved them. Sarah stood there for a moment, holding a serving spoon, looking like she might cry. Then, she squared her shoulders and started rearranging the place settings. This was the life my daughter had chosen. Brad Thompson, 35 years old, a real estate agent who talked bigger than his actual sales record. They'd been married for 4 years, and I'd watched him slowly take over every decision, every conversation, every room he entered. He had that particular kind of confidence that comes from never truly being challenged. The guests started arriving around 4. The Hendersons came early, of course. Mark Henderson had the look of a man who expected doors to open for him. And his wife Diane had the practiced smile of someone who'd perfected the art of looking interested while thinking about something else entirely. Then came Brad's parents, Tom and Linda Thompson, who'd never quite forgiven their son for marrying that Asian girl, though they'd learned to hide it behind polite smiles and questions about my Oriental cooking. Brad's sister Jessica arrived with her husband and 2 kids. And finally, Sarah's childhood friend Amanda with her new fiancé. I helped Sarah bring out the food, making trip after trip from the kitchen while Brad held court in the dining room, his voice carrying over everyone else's. "The market's absolutely insane right now," he was saying. "I just closed on a property in Riverside. Bought it for $450K. Already have an offer for $625K. It's all about knowing when to move." I set down the green bean casserole and caught Amanda's eye. She gave me a small, sympathetic smile. She remembered when Sarah used to make her own decisions. When we finally sat down to eat, I found myself at the far corner of the table, next to Jessica's younger son who was more interested in his phone than conversation. Brad sat at the head, naturally, with Mark Henderson on his right and his own father on his left. Sarah sat nearest the kitchen, ready to jump up for anything anyone needed. The meal progressed normally at first. People complimented the food. Brad's mother made her usual backhanded comment about how authentic everything tasted, which I'd learned meant she thought I'd cooked it all, even though Sarah had done most of the work. I ate slowly, listening to the conversations swirl around me. Then, just as Sarah was clearing the dinner plates to make room for dessert, Brad stood up. He tapped his wine glass with his fork, and the room fell quiet. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he began, flashing that practiced smile. Sarah and I have some exciting news to share. I felt my stomach tighten. Sarah looked surprised too. This was news to her. As you all know, Brad continued, we bought this house 2 years ago, and it's been great. But Sarah and I have been talking. Sarah hadn't been talking, I could tell by her face, and we've decided it's time to take things to the next level. We're planning a complete renovation. We're talking Mediterranean style. White stucco, terracotta roof tiles, the works. We've already got the designs drawn up. He pulled out his phone and started swiping through photos of luxury homes. This is the vision. We're budgeting about $200K for the whole project. I saw Sarah's hand trembling slightly as she held an empty plate. $200,000. On a house they'd barely finished furnishing. That's ambitious, Mark Henderson said, sounding interested. You've got financing lined up. We're exploring options, Brad said smoothly. But actually, that brings me to something I wanted to discuss with family. His eyes swept the table and landed on me. Maggie, I know you're living alone in that little apartment downtown. Have you ever thought about selling it? Moving in with us? Especially after we do the renovation. We'll have a beautiful guest suite. You wouldn't have to worry about maintenance or being alone anymore. The table went quiet. Everyone was looking at me now. I set down my water glass carefully. I'm comfortable where I am. But think about it, Brad pressed on, his smile widening. You could sell that place and maybe, invest the money in something that benefits the whole family. Like our renovation, when Sarah and I build equity in this house, that's Sarah's inheritance eventually. You'd be securing your own daughter's future. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This was it. This was the moment I'd been expecting for months, maybe years. The moment Brad finally showed his hand completely. Sarah was staring at her plate. Brad's parents were nodding approvingly. Even the Hendersons looked impressed by the logic of it. That's actually a smart approach, Tom Thompson said. My mother did something similar. Consolidated her assets, made things easier for everyone. Exactly, Brad said. And Maggie, I know you're probably not doing much with that money anyway. What do you have? Maybe $100K in equity. $150K. That could transform this house. And you'd get to live here, be close to Sarah, help with grandkids when they come along. He laughed. Better than sitting alone in a one-bedroom apartment on a fixed income, right? I looked at my daughter. She was 29 years old, and she looked like she wanted to disappear. I appreciate the offer, I said quietly, but I'll need to think about it. What's there to think about? Brad's voice had an edge now. Sarah's your only child. Don't you want to help her? Or are you planning to take it all with you? The table shifted uncomfortably. This was getting aggressive, and people could feel it. Linda Thompson jumped in, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. I'm sure Maggie wants to help. It's just a big decision. Though Brad's right, dear. At your age, wouldn't it be nicer to have family around? My mother waited too long to move in with us, and we all regretted it. How much do you even have saved anyway? Jessica asked, laughing. You worked at a hospital, right? What was that, like administration? Those jobs don't pay much. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I ignored it. I did work in hospital administration, I said evenly. For 32 years. Right, so you probably have what? A pension? Some savings? Brad was warming to his topic now, playing to his audience. Look, I'm not trying to be harsh. But let's be realistic. You came here from Vietnam with nothing, right? You worked hard, I respect that. But it's not like you have some huge nest egg. And that apartment, it's what, 900 square feet. In a building from the 70s, my phone buzzed again. This time I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. It was my financial advisor, James Chen, no relation, returning my call from earlier that morning. I'd asked him a question about year-end tax planning. Excuse me, I said. I need to take this. Right now? Brad looked annoyed. We're in the middle of. It's my financial advisor, I said simply. It'll just take a moment. I saw Brad's face change slightly. Your financial advisor? For what? Your pension fund. I stood up and answered the phone, putting it on speaker. I don't know why I did that. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was done being invisible. Mrs. Chen. James's voice came through clearly. I have those numbers you asked about. Regarding the year-end rebalancing of your portfolio. The table had gone very quiet. Yes, I said. Go ahead. Your current equity position stands at $1.4 million. The bond allocation is $623,000. Your REIT holdings are performing well, currently valued at $287,000. The dividend-paying stocks are steady. Total liquid assets are approximately $2.31 million, not counting the rental properties. I watched Brad's face drain of color. What about the Houston properties? I asked, keeping my voice calm. All 3 units are occupied. Cash flow is positive. As usual. The Seattle duplex had some maintenance issues last month. But those are resolved. Total rental income this quarter was $47,000, after expenses. Thank you. James. Can you email me the detailed breakdown? Of course. Also, you asked about charitable giving for tax purposes. Given your bracket, I'd recommend. We can discuss that later, I said. I'm with family right now. Of course. Happy Thanksgiving, Mrs. Chen. I ended the call and put the phone back in my pocket. Then I sat down and calmly took a sip of water. Nobody spoke. Sarah was staring at me with her mouth slightly open. Brad looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Mark Henderson was trying very hard not to smile. You have. Brad started, then stopped. You have over $2 million? Plus the rental properties, I said quietly. My husband David was very good with investments. When he died, he left me with a modest life insurance policy and some savings. I invested it carefully. I also sold our old house and bought the apartment, then used the difference to purchase rental properties when the market dipped in 2020. I've lived frugally because that's how I was raised. I don't need a big house or expensive cars. I need security and independence. Linda Thompson had turned an interesting shade of red. You let us think you were struggling. You let us feel sorry for you. I never asked for anyone's pity, I said. I'm a 60-year-old widow who worked hard my entire life. People made assumptions. I didn't correct them because, frankly, my finances are my business. Why didn't you tell me? Sarah's voice was small. Mom, I thought. All this time, I thought you were barely getting by. Because you never asked, I said gently. You assumed, like everyone else. When your father died, people sent casseroles and sympathy cards. They saw a poor immigrant widow. They didn't see a woman who'd been managing hospital budgets of $50 million, who understood compound interest and tax-advantaged investments, who'd spent 3 decades making smart decisions with every paycheck. I turned to Brad. His face was pale, jaw tight. You asked if I wanted to help Sarah, I said. I do. I've been helping Sarah her whole life. I paid for her college education outright, no loans. I gave her $30,000 for your wedding, which you spent on that destination ceremony in Cabo. I've been quietly contributing to an investment account in Sarah's name for the past 15 years. She'll have access to it when she turns 30. Currently, it's worth about $175,000. Sarah gasped. What? I believe in teaching financial independence, I continued, not creating dependence. My mother taught me that when I was young, and I wanted to pass it to you. I looked back at Brad. But to answer your question, no. I will not be selling my apartment to fund your Mediterranean renovation. I will not be moving in with you, and I will not be investing in your house. I was just trying to. Brad started. You were trying to manipulate me, I said. And my voice was still quiet, still calm. But something in it made everyone at the table freeze. You thought I was a helpless old woman you could pressure in front of witnesses. You thought I'd be so grateful for the offer of a guest suite that I'd hand over my life savings. You gambled on shame and social pressure. I stood up and picked up my purse. Sarah, sweetheart, the food was wonderful. Thank you for having me. I walked around the table and kissed my daughter's forehead. She was crying silently. Mom, don't go, she whispered. I'm not going far, I said. I'm going back to my small apartment in the old building. You know where to find me. You've always known where to find me. I nodded politely to the shocked guests. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I was at the door when Brad finally found his voice. Wait, I'm sorry. I didn't mean I didn't know. I turned back. You didn't know because you never bothered to ask. You saw a little old Asian lady and you made assumptions. Let me tell you something about little old Asian ladies. Brad. We survived wars, poverty, immigration, discrimination, and every obstacle this country could throw at us. We didn't survive by being weak. We survived by being smart, patient, and a hell of a lot tougher than we look. I opened the door. The cold November air felt clean and sharp. If you want to build a Mediterranean palace, work for it. Save for it. Earn it. That's what David and I did. We came here with 2 suitcases and a dream, and we built a life through 60-hour work weeks and sacrifice and smart planning. We didn't do it by guilting family members at holiday dinners. I walked to my car, got in, and drove back to my small apartment. The next few days were quiet. I didn't hear from Sarah, which hurt but didn't surprise me. I imagined the conversations happening in that house, the recalculations, the arguments. Brad's humiliation would be burning hot, and Sarah would be caught in the middle, as always. On Monday morning, I had my regular coffee at the cafe downstairs from my building. The owner, Mrs. Park, another Korean immigrant who'd worked her way from house cleaner to business owner, always saved me the corner table. You look lighter, she observed, pouring my coffee. I let go of something heavy, I said. My phone rang. It was Sarah. Mom, she said, and she was crying. Can we talk? Just you and me. Of course, honey. When? Now? Can I come over? Always. She arrived 20 minutes later, her eyes red from crying, wearing sweatpants and one of my old college sweatshirts she'd claimed years ago. I made her tea, the chrysanthemum tea my mother used to make for me when I was upset, and we sat on my small balcony overlooking the city. I didn't know, she said finally, about any of it. The investment account, the rental properties. How much you had. I thought. She laughed bitterly. I thought I was protecting you. That's what Brad always said. We needed to watch out for you. Make sure you weren't being scammed, weren't making poor decisions. And what do you think now? I think I've been stupid. I think I let him make me see you the way he saw you. Small. Helpless. Someone who needed saving. She wiped her eyes. The worst part is, I knew better. I grew up watching you run a hospital. I saw you negotiate with insurance companies and stand up to doctors who thought they were gods. I knew you were capable. But somehow, after I married Brad, I just forgot. You didn't forget. I said gently. You were trying to keep peace. That's different. It's not different enough. She was quiet for a moment. I left him. I set down my teacup carefully. What? This morning. I packed a bag and left. I'm staying with Amanda. She looked at me, and I saw my daughter clearly for the first time in years, not the people-pleasing wife, but the strong young woman I'd raised. I've been unhappy for so long, Mom, and watching him try to humiliate you at Thanksgiving, watching him show exactly who he is to everyone. I realized I didn't want to be married to that person. I didn't want to become that person. Oh, sweetheart. I know it's messy. We own the house together. And there will be lawyers and fighting about money. And his family is already calling me ungrateful and a gold digger. Which is hilarious considering. She laughed again, that bitter sound. But I can't do it anymore. I can't pretend that being married means accepting disrespect. I reached over and took her hand. Do you need help? With lawyers? With money? No, she said firmly. I need to do this myself. I have my job, I have savings, I have that account you set up that I apparently can access in 6 months when I turn 30. I'll be okay. Then she smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from her in months. Though I learned from the best how to be okay. Your father would be so proud of you, I said. Would he? For leaving my marriage? For knowing your worth, I said. For standing up for yourself. For understanding that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. We sat there together as the sun set over the city, drinking chrysanthemum tea in my small apartment with its view of downtown, surrounded by the life I'd built carefully and quietly over decades. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Mark Henderson. Mrs. Chen, he said. I hope it's not inappropriate for me to contact you directly. I got your number from the hospital. We're on the board together, though I don't think we've formally met. What can I do for you, Mr. Henderson? I wanted to apologize for that Thanksgiving dinner. I realized afterward that Brad was using me as a prop for whatever scheme he was running. I felt manipulated, and I can't imagine how you felt. I appreciate that. I also wanted to ask if you'd ever considered joining the Hospital Foundation Board. We're looking for people with healthcare administration experience and financial acumen. It's volunteer work, but it's meaningful. We fund research and support for low-income patients. I smiled. I'd be interested in learning more. Excellent. I'll have my assistant send you the information. He paused. Also, entirely separate matter, but I'm looking to sell my beach house. If you're interested in expanding your real estate portfolio, I'd be happy to give you first look before it goes on the market. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair and laughed. Mrs. Park, who was visiting for tea, raised an eyebrow. What's funny? Brad spent that entire dinner trying to impress Mark Henderson to get his listing. And now Henderson's offering it to me. Karma, Mrs. Park said sagely, has excellent timing. Sarah did get her own apartment, and she did file for divorce. Brad fought it, of course, claiming she was abandoning the marriage, that she'd changed, that she was under my undue influence. His lawyers tried to make me sound like a manipulative villain in the divorce proceedings. But Sarah stood firm. And in the end, they settled. She got her share of the house equity, her car, and her freedom. Brad got to keep his Mediterranean dreams and his wounded pride. On the day the divorce was finalized, Sarah and I went to the cemetery where David was buried. We brought chrysanthemums, his favorite flower. Dad would have handled that whole thing better than I did, Sarah said, arranging the flowers by his headstone. Your father would have been a mess, I said honestly. He loved you so much he would have wanted to fix everything for you. I think he would have struggled with letting you figure it out yourself. Is that what you did? Let me figure it out. I showed you the truth when it needed to be shown, I said. But you made your own choices. That's what I always wanted for you, the ability to make your own choices from a position of strength, not desperation. We stood there quietly for a moment. Then Sarah said, Teach me. Teach you what? Everything. How you invest. How you evaluate properties. How you built all of this. I don't want to just have money someday. I want to understand it, the way you do. I smiled and linked my arm through hers. Okay. But first, you need to understand something your grandmother taught me. Money isn't the goal. Freedom is. Security is. The ability to walk away from situations that diminish you, that's the goal. Money is just the tool. Then teach me how to build the tool, she said. And I did. Over the next year, Sarah and I met every Sunday morning. We went over investment strategies, real estate principles, retirement planning, and tax optimization. She learned how to read financial statements and how to spot a good deal. She learned the difference between building wealth and looking wealthy. She also learned, as I had learned from my mother, that the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful, that you don't need to announce your worth to have value, that patience and preparation matter more than flash and volume. By the time she turned 30 and gained access to that investment account I'd set up, She'd already grown it by another $25,000 through her own contributions and smart choices. She'd moved out of Amanda's place into her own apartment, not big, not fancy, but hers. She'd gotten a promotion at work and had started her own side business doing financial consulting for young professionals. I ran into Brad's mother, Linda, at the grocery store one day. She looked at me, looked away, then apparently decided confrontation was better than awkwardness. "You destroyed my son's marriage," she said. "No," I replied calmly. "Your son destroyed his own marriage by disrespecting his wife and her mother. I just stopped pretending not to notice. He's struggling financially now. The divorce cost him everything. Then perhaps he'll learn the same lesson I learned when I came to this country with nothing. You build wealth through work and wisdom, not through manipulation and entitlement." She turned and walked away without another word. Mrs. Park, who had witnessed the exchange from the produce section, came over shaking her head. "You know what your problem is?" "What's that?" "You're too nice." If that were me, I would have told her exactly where to go. "I did," I said. "I just did it politely. On the anniversary of David's death, I did something I'd been planning for months. I sat down with Sarah and my lawyer, and we established a foundation. The Chen Family Foundation, dedicated to providing financial literacy, education, and small business loans to immigrant women and single mothers. This is what your father and I always wanted to do," I told Sarah. "We wanted to help people who were where we once were, new to this country, full of hope, but without resources or guidance." Sarah looked at the foundation documents. At the initial endowment I was contributing. At the structure we'd set up to ensure it would continue long after I was gone. "This is your legacy," she said. "No," I corrected her. "You are my legacy. This is just money doing what money should do. Creating opportunities and opening doors." The foundation launched quietly, as I do most things. No press releases, no publicity. Just patient work, helping one woman at a time learn what I had learned, that financial independence is freedom, that knowledge is power, and that the best revenge against those who underestimate you is success they never see coming. I'm 62 now. I still live in my small apartment. I still drink coffee at Mrs. Park's cafe every Monday morning. I still drive my 10-year-old Toyota that runs perfectly fine, thank you very much. But I also serve on 3 nonprofit boards. I mentor young immigrant women through the foundation. I've expanded my real estate portfolio to include a small commercial building that houses 5 immigrant-owned businesses at below-market rent. And every Sunday, I have lunch with my daughter, who's building her own empire, her own way, with the tools I gave her and the strength she found herself. People still make assumptions when they see me. They see a small Asian woman of a certain age, and they think they know my story. They think they know my worth. I let them think it, because I learned something important over these past 62 years. Your worth is not determined by other people's ability to see it. Your power is not diminished by their failure to recognize it. The strongest position is the one nobody sees until it's too late for them to defend against it. And sometimes, the best response to people who try to manipulate you is not anger or argument. Sometimes, it's just a quiet smile and a phone call to your financial advisor. Because in the end, the people who underestimate you aren't your problem. They're their own.